96 in reverse.
It is 96 in reverse, and you can have the worst of my drink, and we can switch places. Now we are in reverse.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great. It is that time again. It is 96 and reverse time. And guess what? We have the usuals here. And we have a little special guest. We'll tell you about him in a second. Michelle, how you doing, girl?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, there we go. Cedric, where you disappeared to? Welcome
Oh,
back,
I'm
bitch.
here. Yeah, sure. Hey guys.
Michelle, how you doing, girl?
I'm good. I'm good.
Nate, what's up?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Now, let me say this. We got the best man in the house. He is a journalist. He just covered the cathedral, the Notre Dame Cathedral. He was over there for 2 months. I
Notre
can't
Dame.
say it right. That's fine.
It's
But
Notre
okay.
Dame.
he don't need no introduction. His name is Gil, and he's here with us today. He's going to talk about a lot of things. I think you guys are going to enjoy this show today. Gil, how you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you, Peter, and
That's
Michelle, Nate,
Of
and
course.
Cedric.
Hi, Gil.
Hello.
so, Gil. I wanted to ask you because you have been traveling a lot lately, from what I heard. You know, these little birds tell me stuff. So tell me what you have seen around the world. What have you experimented?
Well, the last year it's been a journey primarily of discovery, and mostly in Europe. Of course, I also traveled domestically in my city, favorite city where I grew up, New York City. But this past fall and part of winter, I was in Paris covering the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral, which turned out to be I would say, one of my favorite journalist journeys ever. But that was an amazing experience. Got to see the cathedral from being a burned out building to a refurbished, glorious cathedral again. But aside from the cathedral, which was my primary coverage, I also took a side trip to Normandy to visit the American cemetery in Normandy, and that was a very profound experience as well. So uh, the last part of the fall, part of winter in France, enjoying it. It was a bit cold. It was a bit windy,
hmm
quite a bit of rain, but that's not a complaint. That was part of the journey.
Right. Gil, if I can interrupt you for a second, let's go back to the Notre Dame, the cathedral.
Yes,
What had it burned down? I completely forgot why it burned down. What happened?
that's a very good question. So there are several versions. There's the government version, the French version. There's the gossip version. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. So
hmm
uh, it probably was a some sort of accidental fire that was started when the cathedral was being cleaned, and so it because it was fairly empty because of the cleaning, and they didn't have any really fire sensors to speak
Mm.
of. It quickly caught fire because we're talking about lumber that's dating back to the 12th century
Right. All
and
that's
13th
gone
century.
now.
So
Oh
you could
no.
imagine throwing a match into a barn with newly unfurled hay how
Yeah.
fast that's going to catch. So,
Correct.
but it was probably a worker. It's narrowed down to a particular worker, and that worker has not been named. And because when some people don't react well to uh, situations like that, and some
Hmm.
people are, they become vindictive or want to harm that
Yeah, they
particular
go.
person.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they've kept it under wraps. But it was supposedly an accident, although there are some additional versions
Mm,
that I've heard of as well.
mm. So, Gil, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
One thing that when we connected with you on, and that really got us interested in, is the. I don't want to be disrespectful, but you are an older man, and you've seen the world change over time. You've seen relationships change over time. You've seen a lot of things change. Um, can you talk to me about how was the 70s and the 80s and things that you saw, and how things are changed to where we are now?
Yeah, very good question because every decade has had its its subculture. Some of it pop culture, some of it underground culture.
Hmm.
Some of it has been. Some countries have been um, the actual kindling of
Hmm.
those movements, and the U.S. is and was at that point in the 70s part of a movement that moved very quickly, and it moved across borders, across cultures,
Hmm.
and it really represents. It was the beginning of what we have today, which is a something happens is culturally, and
Hmm.
it's all over everybody's devices, across borders, across languages, across cultures.
Hmm.
So but that was probably the beginning of the moving of cultures and pop and trends. And I experienced it from the perspective of growing up in New York. So the 70s were rock and roll. The 70s were also, there was a battle between rock and roll and disco.
Mm.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so disco for a while, it had the upper hand.
Wow.
And to the point where towards the latter half of the 70s, there was a counter revolution against disco, which was quite comical because they would have these stadium parties in Shea Stadium, for instance, Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, where they collected disco albums and they set them on fire or
Oh
blew them
wow.
Oh,
up.
wow.
Oh.
Whoa.
So to me, that was a little bit of an extreme of trying to um, stop a trend that was already too late. Disco was happening
Interesting.
in London. Disco was happening in Buenos Aires. Disco was happening in Paris. Disco was happening in L.A. Disco was happening in Tokyo.
Mm.
It was a movement and it was also a movement that was created through the music, through the Bee Gees, through the
Oh,
funk, through
yes.
the funk bands of that era.
Bee
Um,
Gees. Bee Gees are the ones that I feel like
Yes.
started. Well, I know they didn't start it, but for me, Bee Gees had the disco era under their, nails. Um, who was another one? Queen, my another favorite group.
Queen, yeah, they
Um,
began in the 70s too.
yeah, I love Queen. And then there's another group that I really like. I don't know if you remember this movie called Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John.
Oh,
And
Olivia.
yeah, and there's a band on there. They did a lot of disco music too. I can't think of the name of the band, but I
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
really no, not Earth, Wind and Fire is another one. I'll look it up, and I'll probably message you later and talk to you about
Yeah,
it later.
please, please.
Um,
Because I lived that. It was the beginning of I was primarily an athlete at that time.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Do
wow.
you
Was I?
remember the movie? Sorry, go ahead.
Uh, which movie is that?
Xanadu. Do you remember
I do remember
Xanadu?
Xanadu.
No,
I would have to kind
whoever.
of review
Yeah.
review the music behind it, but yeah, I do remember the name, of course.
Yes. And if listeners, if you're trying to figure out what, there's a movie called Xanadu, and it's about um, eight sisters. This is like the Olympian time when there was Zeus and all that. But the eight sisters were muses, and they went and they inspired people around the world. And Olivia Newton-John was one of the muse, and she came down to Earth and she met a guy and she fell in love, but it was forbidden. And things happen, and people. There was a disco ballroom, skating room that's going to be open. Anyways,
Roller
there's a
derby,
long
huh?
right. But it was a beautiful movie. I love it. It's a musical. Um, but it was a wonderful movie, and the music was produced by this particular band that was um really good. I love them. Um,
Uh,
I think they sang one of the songs. Good morning, blue skies. Good morning. I can't think of the name of the song.
Xanadu. Okay.
Yeah. Looking at that?
That's a good question. I do remember the name.
Yes.
Uh, don't particularly recall
The
uh,
band.
the yeah, Xanadu, but I know that it was one of those popular movies. It was towards the end of the '70s, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's Olivia Newton-John,
yeah.
and I would have to look up who was
Kelly,
part of the
Kelly, the tap dancer, the singer tap dancer, Kelly,
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly. Yes,
Okay, so you're talking about
Gene
heavyweights
Kelly.
from old Hollywood.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
That
yeah, Gene
era.
Kelly, Singing in the Rain,
Yeah,
fame, and then you have um, Olivia Newton-John, who was just blossoming into her
yeah,
career of
yeah.
incredible voice, incredible talent.
I miss her. She's beautiful.
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately, she left us too soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, going forward for music, when you said rock and roll was taking over, I know it was love, sex, and rock and roll. The era
Yes.
with rock and roll, though, and just that era in the '80s. Overall, just music, relationships. How was relationships back in the '70s and '80s?
Uh,
How was your relationships?
'70s were a transitional part of for me, for example,
Hmm.
because you grow up with the um, traditional. You date one girl, you have her as your girlfriend, and for long as you can possibly have her as your partner or girlfriend,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there was um, potential marriage as part of the question because that in that time frame people would say when, and that was a question that was often, you don't hear that question hardly anymore,
Yeah, yeah.
but people would say, hey Gil, you and when are you and Linda going to tie the knot? When are you going to who's the one opposed to that marriage?
It's it seems
Or
like
what's
marriage
going
back
on?
then. Yeah, it seems like marriage back then was more forced upon and more
Yeah.
regulated
Mhm.
than it is now. But
Yeah, it was more traditional.
yeah,
It was a
but
tradition.
mhm,
It was a tradition that was, handed down by the parents, and from our
yeah, yeah,
parents, from the grandparents to our parents, and
yeah.
back into generations. So yes, in the
Hmm.
beginning of the '70s, that started to um, be chiseled, and there was a
Mm,
cracks in that type of relationship because disco, for the most part, created a ambiance or opportunity to when you're dancing with multiple partners
mm,
that You would
Mm.
be, for instance, I would be handed a. The cute thing about that period was way before iPhones and any of that sort. Even
Right.
before
Yeah.
beepers, you would get the girl would hand you a napkin folded, and that napkin she would put it in the palm of your hand, and sometimes during the dancing, and you would walk away after the dance, and what do you know? You unfurled the napkin, and there is the phone number and the name of the girl.
Oh wow.
That is so cute.
And then
Yeah,
you'll
it
go
was
to
very, very cute.
a payphone to make a phone call.
Then you would go to the
So
pay.
different.
Yes, you would go to the payphone and make that call. But it
It's
was
crazy.
yeah, because it had to do with the uh, that particular part of the 70s. The technology wasn't there yet, but the
Yeah.
culture was still somewhat traditional.
Right. Right. It's crazy because
so
she would be
so
home
when
waiting for you to call. Go ahead, Peter.
I don't know about the waiting, but I used to talk to a lot of the mothers.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
so that's what
Home
I was
phone.
gonna ask. I was gonna ask, how do you call a person and like pass the mother to get to get the person that you really want to talk to? Like, how you transition that call? Like, you call in, you say, "Hi, this is Gil calling to speak to your daughter," or like how
Yes,
what?
so I would say, "Hi, Mrs. Jones. This is Gil. I am calling for Nicolette, and I met. How's your evening tonight? I met Nicolette at a social gathering, and she we kind of hit it off, and we wanted to reconnect. So I'm calling to see if we can reconnect for coffee or tea or a movie." So in those times, you would want to tell the parents your intentions, that they were
Right.
noble,
Wow.
they were not, uh, you know, a you're not calling to create a uncomfortable moment for the daughter, much less the mom.
Wow.
It's not a booty call.
Yes,
Not
it's
a booty call.
Right. So yeah, I couldn't say that to the
Love
mom.
that.
I
take
said, yeah, Mrs.
Hang up
Nicole,
on
I'm
you.
not calling here for a moment of ecstasy and pleasure.
That's crazy. It's crazy because if we rewind time, rewind time back to where there was no telephones, the men used to come to the house
yes.
and ask for one of the daughters to marry the man. And of course, the man at the time was in the 30s, and the girl was like 16, 17.
Yes, you're
And
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
did have to go to the
Chaperone.
majority of the time you would have to go and meet the parents. That would be
yeah.
a prerequisite so that they would see you and they would ask you. It almost felt like a interrogation
Hmm.
to find out
Who you are.
what grammar school did you go to? What high school did you go
Hmm.
to? Are you in college? Does your what does your dad do? Do you have any brothers or sisters? And so it would be a question more about, do you fall under the umbrella of a family person?
Mm.
Or
Mm.
are you a solo renegade with, a rebel
With
without a
bad
cause,
intentions. Yeah.
with naughty intentions?
Hmm.
So
Gil,
let
were
me.
you ever one of those naughty people? Sorry to interrupt, Peter.
No, no, no.
Oh,
It's fine.
good.
It's fine.
Good. Good.
Well, you always want to behave um, as far as at any level of
Mm.
dating. You always want to behave and show good intentions and show a lot of fun. However,
Good.
because we are social, male, female, or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be, that attraction, the animal attraction,
Yeah.
sometimes comes into
Yeah.
play.
Right.
But it's
Just like it does today.
how you
Right.
handle those situations. So you want to,
Right.
if you're dating a girl and she's showing signs that she wants to make the relationship more than just platonic,
Hmm.
then and you feel like she is compatible with what you like in a girl. So it was a mutual understanding if you wanted to take it to the next level.
So
Right.
I have a question, Gil. Um, now that we're talking about that subject, and I'm gonna twist it a little bit. I'm gonna ask this question: have you ever gotten in a conversation where you're taking the girl back to their house and they're going back late, and you have to now talk to the parents and give an explanation on why you were late? Did that ever happen to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
How did that
yes.
go? If you can share with
Yeah.
Well,
us.
there was
Yeah.
one particular one that I remember, and there were not too many because I kind of kept the. I would fall to
You
under
learned
the
your lesson.
umbrella of the curfew, but there was these two girls from Queens, and at the
Oh,
time we were living in
get the touch.
Jersey, so to go from Jersey to Queens to pick them up,
Yeah,
it's tolls,
yeah.
bridges. So we picked them up. We took them disco dancing, and the girls didn't want to go home. And I kept saying, well, your mom and your dad said bring you back by midnight. Because, oh, don't worry about it. Forget about it. It's
Mm,
okay. Mom is not going to do anything.
Hmm.
So we
mom
took
is
it with a
not.
grain of salt.
But that.
We took them to the disco in Manhattan. We got back in the car, drove them back to Queens. We're at the gate, we're at the door, and the mother comes out and she greets us with a smile.
Mm.
However, from behind the mom, a dad comes out with a bat
No.
Hmm.
and he's
Oh.
chasing Mark and I. But Mark and I were super athletes. We left the guy in the dust.
Hmm.
So we laughed all the way home, and we kind of talked about it, and we came to the conclusion that hey, the girls wanted to continue dancing. The mother, when she greeted us at the door, didn't seem like she was upset, and
Hmm.
the girls didn't seem like they were upset. They had a great time because we danced,
Yeah.
till like 2 in the morning. But
Wow.
the dad did not get the memo.
That's so
He,
crazy.
he did not get the memo, and that's why he came out of the house with the. But we didn't do anything beyond,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
kiss, holding hands, dancing, that sort of thing. So
The
it wasn't
innocence. Yeah.
anything that the dad had to worry about. But his reaction was, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
Very,
Because
very controversial to be chasing. I think he was just wanted to scare us off
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we were Jersey boys.
yeah.
Oh Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was
you
gonna.
go ahead.
Mhm. With that, Gil. So, well, my question was, uh, it's so crazy how how you said the mother was smiling when you guys walked
Hmm.
in and the dad was upset, but let swap that, and the boy comes home late, the mother's upset, and the dad is like, "Good job, son." I'm like, what? And the mother's like, "Oh, my daughter's probably good, doing her thing and having fun." And daddy's like, "My daughter." I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy
Yeah, well,
how
when I
it
would come home
turns.
late, my parents would be mainly concerned that at that time I was, freshman in college, so they were concerned about staying up late and not being able to keep my grades up
Grades up.
in
Uh-huh.
college. So they were mainly concerned about that. But
Right.
yeah, so dad was more concerned about staying up late on a weekday.
On
Now
a weekday.
weekends a little bit looser because growing up in Jersey and New York, we were big fans of all the clubs there as far as
Hmm.
baseball club, the Mets, the Yankees, the New
Hmm.
York Knicks, the New York Rangers. And roller derby was at one of its heights as well. So we would go watch sometimes roller derby, and especially women's roller derby when you see helmets
Hmm.
fly nails broken, and wigs pulled off. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Now, I do want to ask, when did the time change? Because I know that there is a part in the 70s and the 80s where drugs came in heavily to either colleges and stuff like that. When did you see that time happen? And
Wasn't that in the 70s?
when also when I'll say,
Even the paranoia,
yeah, the
serial killers.
paranoia, and like I'll say the gangs, the big gangs,
Mm.
the old gangs. When did that came into place, or was that always there? It was just more hidden.
Okay, so we have a a point of the. I have to go back to the '60s for that.
Okay.
So, and
Okay.
even
Okay.
to the '50s, you had the beatnik generation, and they were counterculture, and the beatniks kind of started blending in with the hippies. The hippies
Mm,
were also counterculture, and they brought in counterculture, which also had a element of drugs.
Mm.
And at
mm,
that time, it was primarily marijuana and some pharmaceuticals, but it wasn't anything heavy like heroin or cocaine. That
okay.
started to transition into the beginning of the
80s?
80s
80s,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
when America became very affluent. The
Mm.
Mm,
economy was flying. It was
Mm.
flying. There were mergers. There was lots of wealth going around. Not only to the people who were making the wealth, which were the parents, but also trickle down to the children. And you have this culture of this drug culture that was uh, brewing under the somewhat undetected, but the culture, the movies, the radio, the music was also enhancing and romanticizing drug use to a certain
Mm.
extent. So
Mm.
have songs like J.J. Cale, song called "Cocaine."
Mm.
You would have songs about marijuana, about the use of different drugs, and so they were glorified even by the rock bands or artists of the period.
mm,
Put that into the mix where then you have uh, mafias being created by the demand in the U.S., where they supplying the drugs. So you have Mexico, you have Colombia, you have Jamaica. Um, so that's when you have the proliferation of drugs, and the U.S. was not ready for it, and neither was Europe because
Mm.
oh
it
wow.
was coming in fast and heavy. And believe it or not, the drug dealers had better technology than the U.S. government.
Oh,
Oh wow.
Wow.
They had planes. Some of the planes had radar jamming devices,
wow.
and they were landing everywhere. They were landing in Georgia. There was a major landing strip in Florida, and in Southwest in California. So that's when the culture started to really change and become have a more of a darker feel to it. Because
Mm.
when you have illicit drugs, you have a tendency for it brings in the darkness into the culture. You start seeing people get arrested, people getting beaten, people getting shot.
Wow.
Hmm.
So
So
the '70s into the '80s, that's when it really became big. A lot of money going in the stock market, a lot of money flowing, and glorification of drugs and proliferation, and it was easy to get.
Mm.
wow.
They want that's another whole conversation. I just feel like, at the time, they had to make money off of something else. And there's a TV show that's called Snowfall. And it's about how cocaine started um,
Oh
in the black
yes,
neighborhoods. It's a good
right,
TV show.
right. No, yes. Then you start seeing into the latter part of the 80s, you're getting people, chemists are getting more sophisticated and they're
Mm,
creating other types of drugs, such
mm.
as crack and other
Opioids, all that
Yeah.
crazy stuff. It's so,
right
it's
now. Being a
so,
musician, I saw a lot of that. I really
oh
didn't
wow.
particularly like to partake in those drugs because it was I just felt that it would take away from my spirit.
Mm,
But
Hmm.
I did see a lot of my band members get into the nitty gritty of the bad side of rock and roll.
mm,
And question, traveling as a musician, what did you see what did you see the most? Did you see most of like fights in bars, or did you see more drugs and or shootings and stuff like that? Because when you are a musician, you get to see a lot of things go down in bars and stuff like that. So what was it that you consider you saw the most out there?
Well, I did have a cover band that was very successful. It was a Doors cover band,
Oh,
and I
Okay.
sang all the
Nice.
Doors music, and it was a really good band. And you mostly started to see fights when people were intoxicated.
Mm.
They
mm,
couldn't
Hmm.
control themselves. They would, uh, do something that was,
Stupid I call
try to
it.
pick up somebody's girlfriend or
Yeah.
mm,
spilling drinks or that sort of thing. So you have, um, depends what we were playing.
Oh.
So, but from the most part, playing Doors music, it's people having fun and jumping up and down. Now, what did see lately, because I bring my guitar to Paris and I bring it to Madrid as a blues musician, I go to the clubs and they love American music.
Mm.
So in Madrid, Madrid, Spain, they love Julio Iglesias.
Yeah.
They love
Yeah.
you know what some of the bands Toreros Muertos.
Okay.
You have which who
Mana's
were here in
one.
Atlanta, but they canceled the show. I was highly disappointed.
mm,
And so you have a lot of popular bands that are alive and kicking in Spain and in France. They have their own great music too. But when I go and create a music, blues music, American music from Mississippi Delta, and I play it, people react to it quite positively
Mm.
because that blues is the father of rock and roll, the
mm.
grandfather of rock and roll. But
Hmm.
getting back to the latter half of your question, Peter, is um, it just depends on the era. For instance, London in the 80s, there was a lot of football hooligans
Mm.
starting fights. Uh, and all because you were wearing the wrong jersey, you were rooting for the wrong
ugh.
team. And I can tell you a 30-second story. I went to East London to the Whitechapel district, where Jack the Ripper
Yes.
did his evil
Hmm.
deeds, and I took
Yep.
a tour, and I was wearing a Chelsea jersey. Now, at that time, it was in the 90s. I did not realize the early 90s. Yeah, it was like the early 90s. I didn't realize because of the hooligan attitude. It was a territory type of mentality
Ooh.
that if you go into somebody's pub with the wrong jersey, you could be
Offend.
asking for trouble. So I happened to go with a Chelsea jersey after the Jack the Ripper tour to an Arsenal bar to have a drink. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon. I went after the Jack the Ripper tour. I wanted to have like fish and chips and a beer. And
Mm,
these skinhead guys came up to me and they were adamant that I'd leave the bar.
mm,
Ooh.
However, I wound up buying them drinks, and I kind of took the diplomacy, the diplomatic way out
Yeah.
instead of confrontational. It did cost me about 120 pounds
Oh,
sterling to get
Mm.
out of there.
in the
But
90s too.
Mhm.
yeah,
With
so
you being in, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, now we're in the 2020s. Um, what is the most historical thing that you think of that will always sit you down and just be like, dang, I cannot believe that happened? Or you be like, oh my gosh, I've seen so much. But what is one thing out of the needle haystack that you can always go back to and say, this was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life?
worst thing. What I would have, well, there's not been too many things that really, except for deaths in family and that sort of
Right, right,
losing a close friend to
right.
disease. But I'm thinking. I'm thinking growing up right in the vicinity of New York City the day that the towers went down, because I
Yeah,
was
Mm.
there the
yeah.
day Mayor Lindsay, the mayor of New York, broke ground with a silver shovel, and he broke ground for the Twin Towers and happened to be there on a school trip. So
Mm,
when I see the towers going down, that's really still devastating
yeah.
because you
It's,
still see it in some of those old movies, and it
Mhm.
brings
mm-hmm.
back those memories.
Hmm.
Yeah,
The towers
yeah.
were there, and so forth and so on. So I would say that was one of the most devastating moments that I
Wow.
can
And
recall.
you've seen a lot. Um, I mean, you were even alive when Kennedy died. Um,
Oh, I was just a little boy, but
little boy,
yeah, when
yeah.
Kennedy got shot, that was I would say that was catastrophic in the sense of a assassination. But
Yeah.
the towers were the assassination of over 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're taking in the context of one man versus, you don't want to put any value, one more value on one human
No,
life
yeah,
than
yeah.
another.
Mm-mm.
So,
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
but to me, most impactful because as a little boy, you see it, you're devastated,
But you
but
don't
then you have your
understand
teacher
it.
and you have your
Mm-hmm.
parents to kind of console
Yeah.
you.
Right.
The the towers where you're an adult. I was
Yeah.
up at the restaurant of the world up in the top floor. I took a girl there on a date, and I actually had a lunch there. It was
Wow.
totally an amazing place. So I was there for the opening, for the groundbreaking. I was there for the as a young adult taking a date up there to take a look at the from the windows the incredible view of Connecticut, Jersey, New York.
Mm.
So totally amazing. That was probably most impactful. That still brings a lot of sorrow
Yeah.
and a lot of pain when I think about it.
I
I
do agree with
second that
that.
emotion.
I do
I
agree with
second
that.
Yes,
the emotion.
but I also counterweight with some incredible experiences, including here in Atlanta. I volunteered for the Paralympics and the Olympics. And
Hmm.
the Paralympics, I had the most incredible experiences with peoples with challenges, physical challenges, visual challenges, motor skill challenges. But these guys and gals were athletes.
Hmm.
And to this day, I still remember the last uh, day of that great Paralympics here in '96, where everybody had disbanded after the show. And guess who's coming up the ramp wrapped in towels, perspiring like she was out of the sauna? Was Liza Minnelli.
Oh wow.
And I stopped. I got in front of the golf cart and I stopped it and I went over there and hugged her. And I remember her turning around and saying, "Oh, honey, thank you for the hug, but I am so sweaty." She was adorable. So Yeah, I do remember the sadness, but you can't daunt on it because
Hmm.
it becomes a it just brings you into a dark place that you don't want to be there all the time. So you have to counter that with some incredible things that happened in life, and one of them was meeting Liza Minnelli, being able to hug her, and meeting other incredible people as well, which I've kept those recollections as a positive reinforcement of humanity creating great art and great beauty and great joy to other people. And I just happened to experience that, be part of that at that particular moment with Liza.
That's awesome. I love that. I love
Now,
that a lot.
now you have seen a lot, Gil, and I wanted to ask you, what have you enjoyed the most? Like, I know you have done journalism, you have done musician stuff. What else have you done that you can say, okay, I can stick to? Let me. Well, this is two questions. I can stick to this era because I like this and I enjoy it, and like a part where like you were like, okay, I can't be here no more. I need to move on to another era. Through your life, what sections did you like the most, and what sections do you think that you were like, I need to run away from this timeline? Looking back.
Right, right. Well, the I enjoyed the as a child in the late '60s, being able to fly from New York to Miami because my uncle worked for Eastern Airlines,
Okay.
and I was hanging out in Miami Springs, and he had this huge lawnmower, and it was so heavy and rusty, but it turned on. I don't know how that machine turned on,
Mm,
but he was really an amazing guy. And he said, Gil, if you these people in my street, all the way across the street on Nightingale Avenue, into the next street, they're all retired. You got here right just in time. You can knock on the door and ask them if you can cut their lawn for $10 a pop. So I did. I cut the lawn for the whole 3 months of part of June, July, August before I flew back. I came back and I thought I was, a
Rich.
young
Super
Rockefeller.
rich.
Because when you're 10 years old or 12 years old and you have all this money, you think you're pretty. So that experience was wonderful because there was a lot of innocence,
Hmm.
and it taught me a lot of things about entrepreneurship, hard
hmm
work, and not being afraid to um, to knock on that door, which happened to be a neighbor's door, but in to compare it to a um, to what I became later is don't be afraid to knock on doors because I was a very shy boy at that time, and my uncle said, "Yeah, you want to make some money? You're gonna knock on that door." So I always remember that if you nothing's gonna happen unless you knock on that door.
hmm
So I enjoy that part of growing up. There's a lot of innocence and a lot of fun. Beach, going fishing. So that was wonderful as a kid. Something that I would want to run from. Not too many things, but I would have to say a couple of bands that I played for that were just completely out of control. I mean, so out of control. And it went with it went with the territory. There were just out of control drugs, alcohol, uh, you know, damaging hotel room. It was just
Mm.
stupid stuff. Luckily, I wasn't part of that. Destruction of
Destructive area.
the destruction of the room, the trashing of the room, or the throwing the um, throwing the TV into the pool. All those crazy nonsense stuff.
I've seen that
Wow.
stuff on
So
movies.
that's why lately, right now, I'm playing music, but I bring in musicians, but I don't. I'm not really part of a band anymore.
Mm.
Mm,
I kind of like you. Sometimes it leaves you a bad taste in your mouth. So that was one of the things I wanted to run away from. Not the music, not the playing the guitar, not the camaraderie with the good musicians, but
Mm-hmm.
just hanging around with the good people that help you to enjoy the music, enjoy the time. So you want to always run away from darkness.
yeah.
Hmm.
And then the other question is, out of all the countries that you have been, which one was the country that you enjoy the most and that you like going back to, a part of living in the States?
Oh wow, that's one of the most difficult but most often asked questions.
Mm.
Mm,
And to me, I always answer the question with a wherever country I might be in at that moment. That's the
mm,
country that I consider the best at that moment.
Hmm.
So when I was living in Italy, I thought Italy was the best, and it is. I have great memories of Italy. When I was living in France several times, I considered France to be my favorite. When I was living in Spain, the same thing. When I was living part time in Colombia, I thought it was a great place too. Um, so there's really no favorite, but I always there's something about each country that draws me back,
mm-hmm.
and when I get to that place again, it's a feeling where you it's complete deja vu because you're able to experience
Mm.
the culture, the architecture, the food. You're able to experience that again, and you get to relive it.
Okay, so now you touched on a subject that I like, which is food. So, out of each country, which food do you like the most? Not, let me say this. Out of each country, when you go to that country, you're like, oh, I need to eat spaghettis from, and you say this specific place. Like, tell me from each one of the countries, what is this something that you're like, this is where I need to stop by before I leave this country?
Okay, that's changed over the years because sometimes the you don't find. For instance, this past year, I've pretty much developed a addiction to onion soup from
Okay.
Paris because it was
Okay.
so cold that onion soup with the cheese it was very warming. But
Okay.
there have been places such as the south of France, like Provence, and they have this pie. It's a little tiny, um, about this size, pie called tarte tatin, and the tarte tatin is made from apples, and it's not
Mm,
like our apple pie, which is it's big, it has a crust, and it has a lot of apples in between two crusts. This is a very thin one. So
wow.
when I was down in Provence, I gained some weight, but I was eating the hell out of tarte tatin. Tarte tatin was incredible, and in Italy it would be zuppa de pesce from Naples. So they have this fish soup that they create from whatever's left over from the day's market, and
Yeah.
so that it's fish soup's not going to be the same every day.
Correct.
And but somehow the Italians from Naples they can create this soup zuppa de pesce with the ingredients and the fish that they bring from that day and that they haven't sold. So if they haven't sold, they don't want to, fridge it. They want to sell it. If the stuff that's left over, they make a soup and they take it to the restaurant or the friend or the family and they sell it there. So
Mm,
very industrious. So sopa de pesce in Naples. Um, Spain is very difficult because the tapas are, there's tapas are so numerous. It's just and amazing. But I would say Madrid has incredible tapas, and Barcelona has incredible tapas as well. So you always remember, and it's a good question, Peter, because you when you go back to those countries or that city, you want to relive
Mm-hmm.
that moment. And what better way to relive the moment that you spent there 5, 10 years, 15 years back is better recollection is when you put that same food in your mouth.
Yes.
Your memory banks go way
Yes.
back. It's like that hard drive
Mm-hmm.
that you never left you. You bring everything back into the fold and you relive it. And it brings back chills and goosebumps.
Yep. It's like sitting in a cafe and drinking some coffee with a croissant and enjoying it, and it takes you back to when your grandma used to bake those croissant and give you
Oh,
milk with with milk and coffee together, and you eat it and you're
Milk and
like, oh my
coffee
god,
together.
this is taking me back when I was a kid. So
Mm.
yes, I do understand that.
yeah,
So
food is the best recollection. And we included it, we installed it into our calendar. We,
mhm.
in the Americana uh,
Mm-hmm.
history, we installed um, turkey at Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Yes.
We installed cake at birthdays.
Mhm.
We
Mm,
installed
mm,
in
Barbecue.
the South,
pizza at birthday
right?
parties.
Exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very good question, Peter. Is the food is what brings back the most recollection. That and the memory of people,
Yeah, that
because
Mm,
stamp.
without people, it would not be a complete recollection.
Yeah.
mm,
So I still remember people that I met overseas,
mm,
and they bring back incredible memories to this day. So we'll see what happens when I go back this July. See what happens when I get there
mm,
to back to Spain, back to France.
And that was going to be my next question. Where are you traveling next? So you're going back to
I am
France.
going to. I'm going to go to Bogota, Paris, and then Madrid
mm,
because I'm. What I would like to do is once I hang up my cleats, I want to be able to have a band in each city that I can go tap into and play live.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't created that yet, but I'm in the midst of speaking to musicians in each city
Hmm.
and see what happens. You go down there. Hey, I'm going to do a couple of gigs with the band and have some fun and enjoy the wherever that might be, Bogota, Paris, Madrid.
How do you plan that out now, Gil? Because you do have a full time jobs. Do you take like a whole month off, or do you like take vacation and then you just um go to the countries?
Well, the reason I was able to get away to France was because I had some eye surgery, so
Okay.
to convalesce. I couldn't be in front of a computer because it would irritate my eyes.
Yeah.
So I had to stay away from screens, computers for an extended time. And so I was able to do that, and I was able to go back and measure the amount of time I could be behind a computer, writing the article, editing the photo, adding the video. So you get to pick and choose wisely
Yeah.
before your eyes become very irritated.
That makes a lot of
So
sense.
that one of the reasons I was able to go to France for the 3 months. But as far as being able to get away, yes, being with, for instance, still working for this great company, I have a lot of vacation time that I
Okay.
accrue, and I'm able to use it wisely for 2, 3 weeks. I'll make that escapade into Bogota, into Paris, or sometimes if I'm in Paris, I can also be in Madrid with a 2 hour flight.
Yeah, they're so
Oh,
close.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's enjoyable.
Yeah, to the point where, like I said, one day I'll hang up the cleats. I want to be able to at least call up a couple of guys in Paris. Say, hey, you guys ready for a jam next week? All right, let's go. Let's do it. Same thing in Madrid. Same thing in Bogota, or maybe Mexico City. That's another great place, or New York as well.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that you have gotten to travel a lot and enjoy these cities and seen a little bit more than we have, and teached us, gave us a lesson on what has happened in the time that we haven't been around.
Well,
You
I'm going to
know,
give you an anecdote, Peter. The when I was right out of college, and I covered the Olympics and the Paralympics. Then I covered the World Cup in France in '98. That's what I knew where my spirit gets rejuvenated. It
hmm,
gets rejuvenated, and it's because I'm seeing different cultures. I'm learning from people. I'm experiencing new food, new music, uh, and that to me is so therapeutic, and at the same time, it just makes me very, very happy.
it's like
It really
creating.
does make. So instead of, if I get a bonus from doing a journalist job or a bonus from Apple, I'm not going to buy a new car. Are you out of your mind?
Travel.
I'm gonna book a humble one room hotel room in Paris and go there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, to me, material things have become less and less important, and the experience of meeting people, food, uh, things that are abstract that you can't really put your hands on. Those are the things that are more valuable than having the late model car, than having the incredible
Mm-hmm.
looking
Mm-hmm.
Gucci shoes. To me, that's has more value. Is intrinsic value is being able to uh, have incredible experience wherever you might be, New York, Bogota, Mexico City, Paris. That to me has more value than having the late model car.
hmm, it's a, it puts a stamp in your life basically.
Your
Like every
memories.
time, yeah, memories. Every time you go to this place, you're like, oh, I remember this. I remember this. This happened here. So
Exactly. So let's say, for example, somebody smashes into your late model Tesla or late model Maserati. People
Mm-hmm.
would go bananas. Oh, my car. Oh, no. What am I going to do? My insurance. Those memories, those material things are replaceable.
Right. It's
Then
so
they don't
true.
yes,
have really any intrinsic value. It's
Mm-hmm.
the people that you've
Made the
met in
connections
life.
with.
It's the
Yep.
foods. It's the culture. It's the music. See that
Mm-hmm.
no one can take away from you.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
No one. No
That's
one can
true.
take that away from you.
That's
So
true.
those to me has the most value, and that's why I prefer not to have the late model car than to travel overseas and experience a new
Right.
friend, um, a new music or new food.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
they're kind
That's
of
I'll
true.
share
similar to how
this.
I met Cedric and I met you.
Yeah, that's true.
That experience to me is very dear to me, and I enjoyed meeting you guys, even it was under the umbrella of work. I still
Yeah,
have those
Mhm.
great memories, and now I'm experiencing it again.
definitely.
Right. And I love that because
And
we're
and
able to come back to you and just connect with you and say you're our friend.
And
Yes, we work for the fruit stand, but we had to make a decision on how we want our, how we wanted to base our lives on, and it is about the
uh,
connection. Because when I first started at the fruit stand with, it is the most important thing is the connection. It is, my
mhm,
life has changed from technology to my garden and friends and family and what am I going to cook next? When am I going to have the next gathering to celebrate life? Those kind of things are really important to my life now, than they ever have
yes,
been before. And I'm 39 years old, and I feel like it's going to grow and get bigger. And it's just friends and family and traveling is more important to me than ever. And I really
I
yeah,
appreciate
think
you saying
your
that.
journey is turning out to be, and it will continue to blossom, and you'll have some incredible memories.
Right.
And I think your path is worth um, worth continuing because there's going to be a lot of surprises and that will continue to uh, give you hunger for life.
Yeah.
That is so true. I think
Yeah.
time is
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
it's so much and so little at the same time, and you have to enjoy what you can while you're here because it's only borrowed time.
That's right.
So
Yes.
And
with
speaking of
that being
time,
said,
yes.
I was about
Jill,
to
we'll have
say
to
that.
close out.
I was gonna say, Michelle, do we have any affiliates that we have to talk about today?
No, not today.
Not today. Okay, that's
And if
fine.
not, we're gonna start putting in our bios. So just check our bio for the
Okay.
links.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. It is the time that we have to say good night and goodbye. But before we do that, Cedric, is there anything you want to say?
Gil, I love you and I thank you so much for joining our show. I really enjoyed about talking about history and knowing what you went through in your life, and knowing that you made the best of your life for you. And you were able to share a lot of those stories. And for me, it touched me because I got to see a glimpse of your world and understand that you had cards that you were dealt and you made those decisions to live a better life and travel and be free. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's one of the things that we wanted from this podcast was something different. And you gave that to us. So I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I want to thank you for inviting me, Peter, Cedric, Michelle, and Nate, with people around me.
And we would definitely take that, and we will invite you back, Gil. That is a must. So
Well, thank you
Yes.
for having me.
fine. And Michelle, do you have anything else you want to say before
I
we
was,
close?
I was gonna thank Gil. Just thank you for coming. I really am so interested. I've always asked people who lived during different eras and decades what it was like for them. And so this just really brought back all the different stories that I hear from people who happen to, be able to have those experiences. And so it was really great to have that. And I just think that 1 hour is just that's not
It's
enough to
not enough
fit so
time.
many different
No, it's
things.
not.
And
I couldn't believe it was an hour.
I know, right? Just it just passed by, and I mean, so many different things. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little envious because there were discos back then, and I mean, there was
Hmm.
and actually learning how to dance disco was something that I've always wanted to do. And I went and looked around. There's no one offering those classes, but you know,
So
No, you have
Nate,
to go. You have to go to the big cities: Miami, New York, Chicago,
yes.
L.A. Those who still have little pockets of that culture or subculture.
is there anything you want to say?
I just want to thank Gil. This was a great conversation. I mean, I know I didn't do much talking this time, but I was listening.
Listen, I think it was great. Uh, Gil, I'm gonna ask: is there anything that you want to say closing to the audience before I say my little spill?
I want to thank you for having me. I know that we'll meet again.
Definitely. And ladies and gentlemen, as you guys heard from Gil, I want to say thank you so much, Gil, for being in our podcast. This was great having you here, and we want you back. Um, and like I like to say, we just went through a era of time. We heard from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s until now, basically. Um, and like Gil said, live your life because nobody else will live it for you. Ladies and gentlemen, 96 in reverse. It's over. Thank you.
96 in reverse.
It is 96 in reverse, and you can have the worst of my drink, and we can switch places. Now we are